Hi, welcome to our Nourishment series. Today we're going to do a deep dive as to why it's a necessity to nourish you now. When it comes to nourishment, knowledge is power. But it doesn't become powerful until we take action. But yet, it requires some kind of linking or bridging to have us take action. So, what does that link?
Yeah, we need to know why. In order to be fueled to do, we need to know why to do. And my why around nourishment, around nourishing my body and my soul, my mind with healthy food, it comes from a place of I want to feel good right now, but I also understand that genetics play a big role, and I want to keep my genes silenced, the not so healthy ones, as long as I possibly can. And sadly, my father was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes before he sadly passed from it back in 2009. So he also knew how to eat healthy, and having children with who are healthcare practitioners who knew had the knowledge and shared the knowledge, he didn't necessarily have the ability to apply all of the knowledge. So we want to teach you. We want to teach you why, but also we're going to teach you how later. But first, again, what drives me is knowing that I can keep my genes silenced by eating super healthy food. And lifestyle has that kind of impact. And my mother has essentially type 3 diabetes, which, as you know or may have heard, that Alzheimer's now is considered the type 3 diabetes, where literally glycosylated blood sugar or red blood cells, so sugar stuck to your red blood cells, which is essentially type 2 diabetes, can now damage your brain cells. So that's why they call it type 3 diabetes. And so she has lost her memory, and some days there are days where she doesn't remember who my children are, who I am, and some of the stories, actually the most recent stories, are about Norbert Nipkin and how he comes to visit. Sorry, I'm just going off on a tangent right now. Okay. And and so how she goes up into the trees with Norbert Nipkin, which is super funny and entertaining, but super sad at the same time. Right. So to go to that level. So do I want to be in a nursing home, because that's the safest place for her? She gets the best care. Do I want to be in a nursing home with dementia? Absolutely not. So that's what drives me. I don't want to be telling my children stories about Norbert Nipkin unless it's with a book, or my grandchildren, right? So I know. So basically, and I know that there are certain things that I can do to delay the onset, even if I have the genes, right? So why not take that knowledge and use knowledge as power, and apply it, and not die of a massive heart attack at the age of 62 like my father.
Right. Oh.
So I mean, it's like those griefs that drive me, but it also, it drives me, but it also, then I bring myself back, and I think, well, what is it about eating healthy and nourishing my body and my mind now? I want to feel good now. So it's not just about genes. How about your genes?
Absolutely.
Are genes a big role for you in
Yes.
terms of motivating you to nourish?
Totally. And it's interesting, the why, because I find that why is transitional as well. Mm-hmm. Because at a younger age, the why is different than now in my 50s, right? Mm-hmm. So in the present moment, that absolutely, the why is, I look at my parents and they're both type 2 diabetes, right? Mm-hmm. So all which could have been prevented. And unfortunately for them, they're coming from a long history, culture of association with specific types of food. And it's difficult for them to shift and change. And I'm like, no, let's halt it now in this generation, for the future generation, not just for myself, for my child, for the next generation that we actually have the capability of accessing, right? Like,
yes.
If we're able to teach others, like, wow, how awesome is that?
Absolutely.
So that's why we're doing this,
yes.
right?
Preventing chronic illness, getting you to live a healthy life, spend less healthcare dollars, and spend that money on you instead, and enjoying life.
That's
doing
right.
Things that you love to do. Why wait and go through the rush and not take time now to nourish yourself and wait until you're 50 and then you're using medicine. Let's use, like Hippocrates says, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, right?
Yes, absolutely. And Chinese Proverbs says it very similarly, because really food is medicine.
Yes.
And in fact, if you're having to take medicine, it's kind of like you've lost it already.
Yeah.
Food is medicine.
Exactly. Right. And it's so important to nourish your body among the other 3 pillars of good health. So the pillars of health, it's one of the really important pillars of health. We've got good food and nourishment. We want to move. We want to nourish our minds. We want to have a healthy mindset through life. And we want to sleep well. So, and those all feed off of each other.
Yes. And I'm going to add in our relationship with other people as well. So the connection.
Yes, the connection through mind. Yes, absolutely. So one of the most important pillars is to nourish yourself so that you can do all of that. So we can sleep better, move better, connect better, and feel good now. So those are a lot of whys. Some more important or very important whys around health are even bringing, to the concept of good energy and weight. So carrying a healthy weight, which is such a big issue in today's world. I think 42% of Americans have obesity, and that's a huge number, right? So North Americans and
all preventable.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
I mean, this is not a segment to blame.
No.
Not at all. It's just, we just need more knowledge, which is powerful, but then we need to take action along with that.
Yeah,
right?
And there's so much around that why, 42% of Americans are obese. And we also have to remember that obesity, overweight, it doesn't matter where you are on your journey. As a woman, you want to embrace you now as you are, love you, see your beauty, own your beauty, no matter what weight you are. Because part of the journey to get to a healthy weight, if that's your goal, is embracing yourself and loving yourself. And otherwise you get to the end and then you expect more and more weight loss or more weight gain if that's your goal. Yeah. It's like, it's embracing yourself as you are
in the moment now. Because, and in fact, embracing yourself doesn't mean that I'll embrace myself once I'm at this weight, right?
Exactly.
It's literally like, I love myself in my skin, in my body now.
Yes.
And it's not really about focusing on the weight. It's about focusing on your health and how you feel in the moment.
Yeah, and the moment you take the steps to nourish with healthier food, you start feeling better right away. And it doesn't matter how much weight you're losing. It's that you're applying the tools to get to a healthy weight.
Exactly.
It's the journey that always matters.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And not perfection.
Never perfection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to add this piece about the why for myself. So,
sure.
Whether you are just about to try to conceive or when you have a child like me, I was thinking, gosh, like I was 44 when I had my daughter, Zoe, and it's not even just, and that's why I said, in the beginning of our podcast, I said it's a necessity, because to me, if we don't have our health, how can we have a long life? And gosh, I don't want to, first of all, I want to stick around for a very long time because I only have one child. And I already started late. So I better, do the due diligence and be a good...
to keep up.
Yeah, right? To keep up, to run with her and all that. But also, if I'm going to live a long life, I might as well feel good.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a wheelchair and have her care for me.
Right.
There's no point.
Yes.
Right? I don't want to be a burden.
Right.
So it's my responsibility to take care of me now. And that's not selfish. It's about being able to take care of everyone else.
Yeah, to be our best selves so that we can take care of the people in our lives. Absolutely. I love that you said that. It's not selfish. It feels selfish when you think about it first, even that whole analogy we went back to, with the plane is turbulent, the masks drop. We all think we're going to put the masks on our loved ones first, but we can't do that. We'll pass out. So we have to nourish ourselves first. So even when making decisions around nutrition, a lot of patients will say, I have to make 2 meals and 3 meals. And no, you don't. You actually want to make meals for the family. We'll get all into that at another episode But
I have to say, we do make a couple of meals. In fact, I was grateful because my husband made 3 meals yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Yes. Right.
Crazy.
Amazing.
Anyway, that's a whole...
So we'll come back to that. let's just jump back to the obesity discussion for a moment, because maybe a lot of people actually don't recognize that they are overweight, because if 42% of us are obese and a whole bunch of us are overweight, how do we even recognize what healthy is?
Well, we don't, because, the baseline now is skewed.
Right. So we think that maybe if we're just slightly overweight, and then maybe that affects us, and we'll talk about diabetes in a moment, but we end up being pre-diabetic just at a slightly overweight weight because of our genes, we're not even recognizing that that may be the contributing factor. So making sure just understand that body mass index healthy is 20 to 25. You don't need perfection, but just understanding that your weight on your frame, there's a body mass index calculator that you can go online and Google search BMI calculator and insert your weight and your height and figure out what it is. And healthy is 20 to 25, 25 to 30 is considered overweight, 30 to 35 is obese, and then anything above 35 is considered what we call morbidly obese, which my patients cringe at. And I say, all that means is it increases your risk for morbidity, like chronic illness, so type 2 diabetes and osteoarthritis and heart disease and such. So it doesn't mean it's like a death sentence,
No, and so I love it that you gave the website for it, but what I don't want, and the slippery slope of obsession.
True.
And, self-worth through numbers.
No.
We don't want that.
But it just kind of gives people a general idea of
100%.
Where are you at.
Yes, the
so
baseline.
That you don't necessarily focus exclusively on your weight, because you might feel, and actually something really important to note is you might actually be in an overweight category and have bigger bones. So there's different body types.
Yes.
So just understanding that you may be like a mesomorph, carry more muscle or bigger bones. And so then you're in a higher BMI calculator or category, I should say, and that you're still actually healthy. So that's why you put the whole picture together. But it's just nice to have that general assessment rather than just focusing on weight. It's like 100%. Bigger picture.
And then let's bring in this, because there's some people like you and I, we're slim and we're predisposed, right? So we can't just ignore, it's not just pure weight.
Right. So I had a patient yesterday, funny enough, who actually she's wanting to gain 10 pounds because she lost 10. She's only shy of 100 pounds. And she is type 2 diabetic. So she has type 2 diabetes and she's shy of 100 pounds. She had surgery and lost weight. So it's figuring out, what are your metabolic parameters, meaning what does your blood say and what does your genes say that might trigger that? And she actually doesn't even have genes to increase her risk, which is even scarier, or at least not known genes.
Right.
So, but it's recognizing that weight isn't always the factor. Right. Knowing that you are somewhat healthy helps, and then having a target. But then recognizing that some people are trying to gain and some people are trying to lose, but it's more than weight, and it's the journey to just eating and nourishing your body and mind with good foods that will give you good metabolic parameters, meaning healthy lipids, cholesterol, healthy blood pressure, right? So it's not just weight.
So I want to just add in that Chinese proverb, because I couldn't get it out of my mouth first. So he that takes medicine and neglects diet wastes the skills of the physician. So, really it's about balancing and considering the medicinal value of foods as you eat. And so, I can see that this podcast can just keep on going forever. So I want to just, speak to the realities of our earth right now, right? I know, 114 million people in China have diabetes. So in sheer numbers, China's number 1, India's number 2, US is number 3. But
1 in 3 Canadians have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Pre-diabetes.
1 in 3.
Tell us what this is.
So what is diabetes? Diabetes essentially is when your blood is sticky. What does that mean, sticky? So sticky with sugar. So our blood is made up of red blood cells, and within the center of each red blood cell, we have a little protein called hemoglobin. Literally, if we over-consume sugar, or if our body's not working well to absorb that sugar, which I'll get to in a second, our blood becomes sticky.
Yes.
Because our sugars bind to those little hemoglobin, those protein molecules within our blood.
Yes. So we want to actually say that we do require sugar.
We do.
To be a human being, to be alive.
Yes. That's what fuels us and gives us our energy.
So the energy needs to go into the cells.
We need to absorb it in our brain and our muscles to be able to use it for energy. However, the issue is when it gets overloaded and we end up with kind of maple syrupy blood. That's kind of like pre-diabetes. When it's starting to get a little sticky and our bodies can't use the sugars properly. And we have this special, lovely little endocrine gland called the pancreas. So one of our organs called the pancreas, and it shunts out insulin every time in response to every time we eat. The problem is that every time we have a big sugar load, or if we're over-consuming sugar, if our body perceives that we're over-consuming sugar, and we'll talk about what sugar even is.
Yes.
But when we over-consume it, then our receptors, which are these like little, essentially locks that receive the message, which is the key, the insulin, they get overwhelmed and they're like, stop yelling at me. And eventually they just ignore. They're like, I'm not listening to you anymore. I'm just going to
Talk to
sit
the
here.
hand.
Yes, right? Literally. And so then
the
sugar like kind of floats around, gets sticky. And then that's where, if it gets too crazy sticky, it becomes more molassesy, like a really slow moving river.
Great analogy. And then, of course, then you have a whole host of chronic issues, right? So you're predisposed to strokes, cardiovascular illness.
Yes, because the blood is not getting there properly, and your vision loss.
Yes, vision
kidney
loss. damage.
Yes. High blood pressure.
Yes.
So those are the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
A lot of people go through life, even with diabetes, not getting to those and nth degrees, or losing limbs, for example.
Yes.
But there are many people who do, and it's also not just about, there's such a big range. There's actually a really special test that I love called the HbA1c test that you can run and figure out where you sit, because it's a range, but we don't necessarily all want to sit in the, the pre-diabetic range, which is where 1 in 3 Canadians
1 in 3. Yeah,
sit.
that's insane. Yeah.
We want to be optimally sitting in the under 5.5 is the number, the special magic number category, because we feel better at that. So it's not just about trying to not get vision loss and go blind and lose limbs. It's like, how do we feel our best? And a lot of people don't realize that, they're feeling tired because their blood's a bit stickier.
Exactly.
Right?
It enhances our vitality and energy if you're eating more properly. And what else? Oh, even like joint pains.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're sticky, like things just don't work and move as well.
Right. And actually, I'll bring it back to weight for one instance for one moment, because I think that's important to know. This was a powerful fact that I tell a lot of patients, and they think, wow. So for every pound of extra weight that you have for your body and where you sit best, it's an additional 3 pounds of force on your joints. So that's why they prescribe weight loss for osteoarthritis of the knees, for example. So because even if you just lost 10 pounds, that's 30 pounds less force.
Which is amazing. And then here's another fun fact. We eat about 88 pounds of sugar on average a year. Like, seriously, guys, that's literally physically up to here on me. Literally. If we stick sugar in me, like that's like I'm filled up, right?
Wow. That's a good
crazy.
visual.
Crazy.
Yes.
And let that be a visual guide for you to say, oh my gosh, maybe I need to cut it down a bit, right?
Yeah. And we're going to do a whole sugar podcast too, just to kind of explain to you, what does that even mean? Where do we get sugar from our diet? Because it's not just eating like, table sugar, putting it in our coffee, that kind of thing. It's beyond understanding. Sugar is in every complex starch, whether it be refined or not refined. So we'll go into more details about where you are getting that 88 pounds?
88 pounds.
Wow. Yes, where you're getting that sugar from.
That's crazy. Yeah, so important. And, we need to close up because we just want bite-sized information for you so that you can like chew on it, reflect upon it, and let that be a guide to your transformation in your life. And by the way, transformation doesn't mean like, bam, I do like a whole 180 and like shift, right? It's literally like little things that you can tackle day after day, consistently over time, that can have a huge effect.
Yes, and knowing your why. What is your why? We're talking about family history, and I don't know if we have enough time to get into our personal whys, even our own health. Did you want to talk about that?
Well, we're kind of running out of time, so I think we can talk about that another time.
Yes.
But, I love you too. It's a love fest. I love doing this with you because, you know what?
Because we talk about Norbert Nipkin and, and our whys.
And our whys. I love it. But, and so to just like cap it up, like, really it's, again, how do we shift from the knowledge of, gosh, there's an obesity crisis, there's a diabetic epidemic, never mind the coronavirus, right? But, this is like real stuff. And how do we transform this individually before we start to impact the rest of this earth. We want global health. And it starts with you. And you get to take charge. But you can't do that unless you have your own personal clarity. So please, your homework today after this, just reflect and ask yourself, well, why is it important for me to be healthy?
We want to, yeah. And I want to ask you one last thing.
Okay.
What did you do this morning to fill up your teacup?
What
to add to your teacup?
So, you know what? I have lots of things to say, but I have to say that this laughter,
oh, right?
Us just being together, doing this, before we actually were able to get on air, I think we laughed and cried with laughter tears, of course. It's still there. It's still there. And that totally fills my cup because we also know that laughter is healing. So thank you for being here, doing this with me. So I'm not trucking and trying to do this on my own, right?
Yes. And awesome. I would have to say that tops for sure my singing in the car, but that was what I did.
There's no self-judgment. No judgment.
No,
Are
right?
you kidding?
Totally.
Singing? I love it.
Singing, yes. Okay. And we're going to sing together.
All right. We're going to sing together. Not ready to sing.
No. Harmonize. Thank you for joining us. Click subscribe, like, and share. Please comment and suggest topics you want us to cover.
Until next time, ask yourself, how are you going to embrace you first today?
For more podcasts, check out embraceyoufirst.com.
And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.